Republicans in the House of Representatives accomplished one of their long-term goals. They've been fighting for this for some time. They're going to be doing massive cuts to food stamps in America, totaling potentially $40 billion over 10 years. Now, we have a quote from the House Majority Leader saying what they're doing, his explanation for it, but then we're going to tell you what actually happened. So Eric Cantor says, this bill is designed to give people a hand when they need it most. Most people don't choose to be on food stamps. Most people want a job. Most people want to go out and be productive so that they can earn a living, so that they can support a family, so that they can have a hope for a more prosperous future. They want what we want. But what we want, by that I mean the Republicans, is to do massive cuts to food stamps. And so the Congressional Budget Office has estimated that the House legislation would deny benefits to 3.8 million Americans next year and save $39 billion over 10 years. It would also allow states to deny benefits to able-bodied adults who don't work or enroll in training for at least 20 hours per week. It would also make it easier for them to institute drug testing before gaining these benefits and things of that sort. And so Eric Cantor can say whatever he wants about this being a helping hand to the American people. I think he's putting out his hand and he's raising one finger.
Yeah, well, and that's true, John. And, you know, I mean, it's at least the Republicans are just as harsh on the overspending and the overindulgence at the Pentagon, right? I mean, with those military subcontractors that go into the Pentagon, they're cutting and slashing all of their money and prosecuting them too.
And in fact, in this same bill, in the original version, when they cut the food stamps, they made sure to keep the subsidies for agribusiness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you're a giant multinational corporation, well, we're going to keep your subsidies because poor corporations, what are you going to do if you only make a couple of $1 billion in profits?
Well, not to mention,
are any of these agricultural businesses in jeopardy of going under without the subsidy?
Well, they are, because they're taking the food stamps away, so those people can't afford to use their food stamps on the company's food, so that's why they're subsidizing.
No, but there's actually some truth in that.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you the lobbyists for the agribusiness went in there and said, look, if you're going to cut food stamps, that cuts us a little bit, so make sure you keep our bribes going. Make sure, we're bribing you, so make sure you keep that graft going and the subsidies rolling in our direction. So I don't care at all if you destroy poor people in this country, but you will not touch our bottom line.
Make up our difference. Yeah, make the difference up.
Of course, you're going to give us even more money. And the Republicans said, well, of course, sir, absolutely, sir. Do you think that poor schmuck's paying my campaign donations? You are. So your subsidies go up while we cut from the poor.
Dan Frumkin, who is just about my favorite reporter, as you know, Cenk, he's been on the show. He wrote a great piece today about how this story was covered. And I think that we actually will make a mistake, because I read this Frumkin story, in sort of talking about this in the terms that we already started talking about it, correct as those terms may be. There's obvious hypocrisy here. They have taken a program that feeds hungry people and cut it. It is an act of intense cruelty and brutality that should not go unchecked. And in the coverage of it, was treated like it's just another story. Again, well, here's what the Republicans said about it. John Boehner's quote, given without any context in the New York Times story: "This bill makes getting Americans back to work a priority again for our nation's welfare programs." The bill is not about getting Americans back to work. The bill is about taking programs that have fed, literally, by every study, millions of hungry Americans since the recession hit, and cutting it. And these guys act, in the quote here, there's another quote here from Representative Marlon Stutzman, is that how we say her name? In the real world, we measure success by results. It's time for Washington to measure success by how many families are lifted out of poverty and helped back on their feet, not by how much Washington bureaucrats spend year after year. Yeah. It leaves out the fact that the point of the program is to feed hungry people.
Right, but you have to go at it, and Frumkin's right, you have to go at it through the hypocrisy too. Jackie Spear gave a really great speech that I urge all of you to look up online yesterday on the floor, talking about what these Congress people, when they go on these congressional junkets, what they spend. They get $141 per diem on one trip. They get food, they get steak in Argentina, they get Russian vodka and caviar when they're in, and they get paid, they get money to buy it with. And they're the people that are taking food, as Ben is saying, to make it full circle. The hypocrisy is just incredible.
So look, when you look at the program here, Fox News did a great job of demonizing the people who get it. And so that when you hear the quotes that Ben is talking about. What the Republicans are basically saying is, if we deny you the food, then you'll finally get up off your lazy ass and get to work, and we'll have ironically helped you by knocking that food out of your hand, okay? Yeah. And out of your kids' hands, by the way. So what was Fox News' angle on this? They found a guy named Jason Greenslate in California, who apparently gets food stamp benefits. Right. And he apparently surfs because he's in California and he likes rock music, which I believe if you are hungry or not hungry, you're allowed to like rock music. But they did a story on him and they're like, look, the beach bums are getting the bums.
Because the kid used the phrase free food.
Right.
Like, it's awesome. I get to surf and get free food. It's awesome. What could be better?
Right. It's a classic hatchet job by the Fox News. And apparently they got every Republican in the House to watch it. And then Representative Tim Huelskamp, and it makes sense, they're the propaganda outlet for the Republican Party. Yeah. Representative Tim Huelskamp says, well, now you can no longer sit on your couch or ride a surfboard like Jason in California and expect a federal taxpayer to feed you. Yeah. So they've got one Jason who is, surfs and gets food stamps. There's 47 million other people, and I've seen a 60 Minutes report of this family. Both the mom and the dad were working because of the recession. They lost their jobs. They're trying to just desperately hang on to a hotel that they've now moved into because their house was underwater and they couldn't afford to pay it anymore because they lost their jobs. And there's a middle-class white family in the middle of the country, etc. And the kids are literally hungry. They don't have anything to eat because their parents don't have a job, right? And the parents every day they go out and they look for a job.
And they surf, I'm sure, right?
You're right. Yeah. They got 3 kids. They're desperate to feed them. And in the midst of that, they get a little bit of food stamps so they don't literally starve, right? Now, you can find 47 million of those stories, but Fox News finds Jason in California, and the entire Republican caucus says, ha, you see all these bums? Because that's how they view Americans.
Guess what? There are hundreds of Jasons, maybe even thousands of Jasons.
Yes,
that doesn't make the point. That doesn't make the point. The point here is that there are tens of millions of people who are not Jason, who need this. And yes, there are always going to be, in any system, people who take advantage of it, from the schoolyard on up. But the point of this is what Ben said, what Frumkin wrote, what we've been talking about, is you are taking food off the table of your fellow countrymen.
And look, I got to add one last thing about the hypocrisy from my point of view. Look, if we were all in it together and we said, hey, look, at some point this program has gotten too large, or the Jasons of the program have gotten to a certain percentage, and we've got to reform it, etc. And like Michael said, we're cutting defense, we're cutting this, we're cutting that. Everything's taking a cut, and we actually would love to help the good folks in Syria, but we can't because we literally don't have the money to go and do bombings over there, so we're going to have to cut this program by 5%. Okay, then we're having a conversation. But if you tell me you're going to keep giving subsidies to Dow Chemical and Monsanto and all these guys, you're going to keep doing the wars, you're going to keep giving that pork over to all the people who donated to you, you're giving literally the most profitable companies in the world, the oil companies, about $14 billion a year in subsidies, our money going into their pocket when they literally make more money than anyone else on earth. Well, then no, I'm not going to let you take money away and food away from 47 million people in America who need it, okay? No, then we don't have a deal. That means you're not earnest. You're just an incredibly bad guy who got bribed by certain people to take money from Americans and give it to your corporate donors.